Hello and welcome to IG's Trading the Markets podcast. And today we're here to talk about potential coronavirus vaccinations, which companies are winning the race to find one, and what it means for the attractiveness of the broader biotech space from an investment perspective. Joining me on the podcast is our in-house expert, IG's Josh Warner. But before we get going, just want to let you know that in the podcast notes below, you'll find some information on some of the stocks that we're about to discuss, some of which are all session stocks, and that means that you can trade them out of hours with IG. So let's get started. Josh, great to speak to you. Let's just start with a kind of overview of what's happening, because it seems as though this is such a fast-moving story. Every day there's a fresh headline. It was Moderna on Monday, GSK and Sanofi on Wednesday. Talk to us about where we're at right now.
Yeah, well, we know that a lot of companies are trying to develop a vaccine and at a rapid pace, and things have progressed really quickly over the last few weeks. According to the World Health Organization, there are now 25 candidates that are actively being tested on humans, and that is a huge increase from just 10 or 11 a few weeks ago. So the industry is moving fast, and it's worth remembering that sometimes it can take 10 to 15 years to develop a vaccine usually, and these guys are trying to do it in 1 or 2 years. Beyond that, there's many more. There's about 139 other candidates that are yet to be tested, on humans, but are in the preclinical stage, and that number has also been growing in recent months. So lots of activity going on at the moment.
So lots of companies have really advanced their research, but who's the closest in discovering the solution? Who's winning the race right now?
Yeah, I mean, some leaders have emerged. Of the 25 most advanced candidates that are in clinical trials, 6 are already in phase 3. This is considered, the last and the most intense round of evaluation before it can be considered safe for human use. It's where, the real trials begin, involving, thousands of people, and this will ultimately prove whether or not it's effective at protecting us from the virus, but also doesn't have any, adverse effects when humans consume it. So the first one to look at is being developed by the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca. We've got another one being led by US outfit Moderna, as you mentioned earlier. And there's another being formed by a collaboration between BioNTech, Fosun Pharma, and Pfizer. And then the remaining 3 are actually based in China, involving firms such as Sinovac and Sinopharm. So they're your most advanced trials at present.
Now, we've also seen some governments start to pre-order potential vaccines. What does that tell you about the sort of strength of these contenders?
Yeah, I mean, governments are eagerly buying up stock in advance, but there's no guarantee that any of them will work necessarily. So if we take the UK government, for example, it's already signed 4 separate deals for 250 million doses of potential vaccines. That includes 100 million from the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca tie-up, 60 million from European firm Valneva, 30 million from BioNTech and Pfizer, and just today, there was news of an order of 60 million more doses of a potential vaccine being developed by GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi. So, these orders do provide an extra layer of confidence behind, these potential vaccines, but they don't change the fact that there's no guarantee any of them will work or ever be made. The clinical trials may be at a more advanced stage than others, but the hurdles only get greater as development goes on. So, if you look at the US Food and Drug Administration and data that they've released, it suggests that the majority of candidates will fail, and at best only a handful will ever make it. And this is why governments around the world are pledging billions to secure early access from multiple candidates, because they know that there's a high chance that most of them could fail. So let's not forget that we don't have any vaccines for previous versions of coronavirus like MERS and SARS, or even the common cold. So governments are clearly aware of the risks, and they're sort of hedging their bets by ordering numerous different candidates.
Yeah, so it's interesting that there are just so many companies out there trying to develop a vaccine, particularly when the chances of success are pretty low. I guess that means that the payout for a winner must be pretty considerable.
Today we've not experienced a pandemic as bad as this in modern history. So the drive and urgency for a vaccine is far greater than usual. This is why, compared to previous outbreaks like Ebola or SARS, the effort being put behind this is huge. And while you'd think that any company that does develop a vaccine is due to earn a fortune, the rewards on offer to any successful company remains slightly up in the air at the moment. For example, if one company finds the answer, then it will enjoy exclusivity and be able to potentially reap bumper profits from that. However, if there's numerous companies that discover a solution, then there could be numerous options entering the market in rapid succession, and this would give governments more flexibility as they'll have more choice about which vaccine they can choose. But in turn, that would lower the prospects for the developers of the vaccines because they'll face competition and pricing will become more important. And also, there's the fact that some companies like AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson have also said that they're planning to make the initial rounds of any vaccine on a no profit basis.
So where is the payout then?
Well, I mean, nobody should expect any company that successfully develops a vaccine to see a return in the short term, apart from, if a public company is involved, undoubtedly would be a record, share price going through the roof kind of moment for them. The attitude at present is to find a vaccine and distribute it, preferably globally, as quickly and cheaply as possible. And some companies don't want to be seeing trying to profit from a health crisis, so they will be expected to prioritize public health over profits, but at least only in the short term. Over the longer term, the returns could be really substantial. What one very likely possibility is that any successful vaccine would have to be given seasonally, so once a year, for example, like they do with the flu, rather than as just a one-off silver bullet that can just protect you forever. And this would mean that while initial rounds of vaccines wouldn't potentially yield any, real profits, they could potentially cash in massively during the following years, or by, selling stockpiles to governments, for example.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds as though there is a lot of uncertainty, yet we have seen so much money flowing not only into these stocks, but into the broader biotech and pharmaceutical sector as well. Is that sort of a flight to safety? Is that a defensive trade? Is that people looking for a place to park their money away from some of those more riskier stocks, like, say, in the tech sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think hundreds of billions have been put into this sector this year, and I think from an investment point of view, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to get caught out, further down the line. For example, if we take Moderna, who was one of the first companies to start developing a vaccine when the virus was discovered. Its share price has rocketed from below $19 at the start of the year to over $81 today. That means its market cap's gone from 6.5 billion to over 30 billion today, and all of that value is underpinned by hopes it will develop a vaccine. So if it fails to do so, which is a very high possibility, then a lot of investors will be caught out as that value just melts away. And the same goes for many of the other smaller stocks that are trying to develop a vaccine. Unfortunately, the flurry of excitement around the industry is very understandable at the moment, but investors risk getting caught up in the excitement and overlooking the reality, which is competition to develop, a vaccine is intense, the risk and costs are high, and the chances of success are low. So, um, it's very difficult. But these smaller stocks could also prove right from a trading point of view, because as these test results continue to roll in over the next coming months, most of it will be bad news, and this should present plenty of shorting opportunities for traders on those stocks that fail.
So how do investors avoid falling into this trap without missing out on potential opportunities in the space?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is try and identify those that are working on a vaccine or a treatment, but that have strong prospects beyond that. So large pharmaceutical firms, as you would expect, haven't seen the same stellar rises in value as these smaller stocks that have popped up, but they have still put in a really good, strong performance compared to the rest of the stock market this year, and they are likely to hold up well even if they fail to discover a vaccine. Someone like AstraZeneca, has rocketed in value by about 50 billion pounds this year. And although it would, obviously take a hit if its vaccine didn't go to plan, it has plenty to fall back on, even if that vaccine doesn't come to fruition. The same goes for some of the smaller stocks too. Companies like Novavax, whilst also trying to develop a vaccine, also looking at other, avenues like a potential flu vaccine. Or there's UK small cap Synergin, which is trialing treatments for widespread issues like asthma and COPD. And it's these types of stocks that, haven't put all their eggs in the vaccine basket, if you like, that are potentially going to hold up better if they're not successful. One more angle that you could take is, take a step back from looking at the stocks that are developing vaccines and turn your attention to other vital parts of the process, like suppliers and manufacturers. If you take a company like Corning, for example, which makes glass vials for drug testing, this is a stock that could potentially perform quite well, regardless of who actually develops a vaccine. So this could be regarded as a more defensive view for investors.
All right, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much to my guest, Josh Warner from IG. And thank you for listening to IG's Trading the Markets podcast. I'm Victoria Scholar, and don't forget to subscribe.